This broadcast is appropriate for all ages right here on hashtag WeAreMovieClub. This is Weird Movie Club with me, Cameron. That is the wrong, stupid background. I will fix that as we are talking. But hi, I'm Cameron. We're here to talk about the movie of the week, which in this case was not the slashing that was over on Bad Movie Club. This is the wrong background. I'm going to get rid of it. We're going to sit in the dark together so we can talk about Death Note. Death Note we watched on Netflix. I actually was in charge this week, which is a rare occasion, and a couple people that have been kind of semi-regular in my room on Rabbit came by and watched. Didn't get much Weirdling traffic, unfortunately, but it is normally set up through TheBirdieSaurus, through the Weirdlings community as part of MovieSaurus Monday, and then we can talk about it here on things. I guess this is a good substitute until I can get the other one ready. But I'm so proud of these backgrounds, and then I keep forgetting I have them. So it's still an adjustment. Plus, this is the first time in 2018 we've done this. So we will go ahead and we'll do it this way. That's not appropriate. There. So at least we've got something up. But I will continue to work for you, because that's just what I do. Oh, I had done other candidates for Weird Movie Club. That's right. That's why these other thumbnails exist. I was like, we didn't, those, I don't have control of that. I don't know why I think it's so funny. But like, I saw Yoga Hosers and I was just like, really? Because I watched it the other day for fun, trying to go to sleep, but okay, the chair's touching the screen. Forgive me. I'm trying to get things. So this is the horrible dumpster. What is kind of funny saying? Dumpster truck on fire that is my life right now. So I'm trying desperately to deal with things and whatnot. It just doesn't always work out, and that's fine, because in our lives we can use escapism through movies and television and whatnot, and then we can get together and talk about it. And as I'm finishing this up, I will actually be able to pull up show notes. God, I thought I had fucking done everything. I really didn't. I should have waited another couple minutes to release it exactly on time, just like I did. So we're gonna, I just have to do this. Yeah, there we go. It's the wrong, see, it's the wrong sigil. This is why we can't have nice things. This is why we can't have nice things. Don't worry, I got it. Really? Why does it do it like that? Oh, GIMP. At least it's this easy to import. Alright. Oh my god, stop asking me 1,000 questions. You sure you want to discard this? You don't have to see it? I didn't actually change anything, you crazy bastard. Oh, GIMP is not your friend, people. Let's try this. Boom! Okay, now we're right. Now, maybe we should just start over. Let's pretend. I'm not actually going to do it, but let's pretend and start over together. Let's have a nice time talking about Death Note. And I really don't know why the show notes aren't up. Did I even do a bad summary? This is how my life is right now. I keep thinking I did things because it makes sense that I did them, and I was thinking that I got all my bad summaries done, but I realized I didn't do Death Note, and I have no idea how the bad summary for this is going to work. There's my review. I don't know if I posted that or not, but I did do that at least. I'm going to have to go check now, too. But if you're unfamiliar with Death Note in general, it is based off an anime called Death Note of the same title. Who'd have guessed? German. Okay, whatever. and it's based on the anime, and it's all about a kid who finds a book that lets him kill anyone he names in the book. I did post a review. Yay. So, it's a high schooler. Now, granted, he's a really smart high schooler, and they do the Spider-Man treatment with it. They don't really represent exactly how smart he actually is until the end of the movie. And then that last, I don't know, like 10 minutes or so shows exactly how smart he is and how smart he's been the entire movie. He's just been, because it's the Americanized version, too horny to actually, like, represent himself properly, which is ridiculous. But that's the big difference between the things, other than just the time. Now, granted, it's a web series. I'm sorry, it's an anime series originally, so it's this long, and they condensed it down to about that long. Really, they did not. There's not enough time in this movie to give you the full breadth of it. You're just getting a little chunk. And granted, now, like this reality, this is Death Note, right? And then, like, the story arc that they tried to give us probably would have been this much of Death Note, and then they condensed that down to this. There's some real big differences here where you can't actually give it a one-to-one from universe to universe. They are separate canonical stories for sure. Real quick, just get it out of the way since I have it up here on my screen. This is the live-action version, American version we're talking about, because there is a live-action version in a foreign market, which I'm assuming is Japan, maybe Korea, but it's probably Japan. Just real quick, aesthetics, I hit it for a 92, storyline 85, character development 75, compulsion 88, and rounded out to a final score of 85, which is a pretty decent score. If you play video games, you understand 7 as being a 0, and I hate all of you who think that. But on my scoring system, my 100-point system, that's actually good, because you do actually have 10s and 20s. 50 being or lower than 50 being a failure. So this is a pretty decent movie, and I love how Ryuk looks in this. So the book is actually a it's like a contract with a demon, or a death god, if you will, a Shinigami. So writing the name in the book actually essentially connects a conduit of that death god's power to that life. And the death gods could just kill whoever they wanted, but they follow rules too. I think in the anime, Ryuk explains at one point that somebody one of the death gods actually got themselves eliminated. Yes, it's if you choose to spare a human life for some reason when they should die, then you're atomized, essentially. You're gone. So they can die, sort of, or they're removed from existence, if you will. I've got a kitty. Yeah, meow. That's what you do. You meow. Oh, Child Light's still playing. I should probably close that. But what was I going to say? The wonderfulness of the show is really in the intricacies of how everything happens, because as Light's investigating, this happens in both the anime and the book, or the movie, as Light is investigating the Death Note, he finds out that there are rules and things, so you can arbitrate what the last things are that happen before someone dies. Up to 48 hours, it says in the movie. I think it may be different in the book, but so, like, if I write Weeblack's little name in the book, I don't think it affects animals, if I'm being honest. But if I write her little name in the book, I can determine the last 48 hours of her life. I can make her climb trees, save humans, all sorts of stuff. Up until the moment she dies in a cage fight with an MMA fighter. I don't know. And they example that by having someone who's holding his family hostage, like, walk out into the street and get hit by a car. So that's not even affecting just the victim. That's affecting the people around him. Because the driver of that truck, it was in the middle of a hostage negotiation. It was some idiot in a truck who's like, I'm gonna get him, and just ran his truck out there, because everyone else had their guns trained and was waiting for some kind of authority message or to react to something, because that's what you do in those scenarios. and the truck just hits him. It's the most ridiculous thing. Maybe that'll help a little bit. And my notes are pretty sparse because like I like talking in the room instead of taking notes. They even gave me a hard time about it when I mentioned it. But this whole version is just like, I'm trying to think of an American, like, it's very Americanized. I'm trying to think of like other examples because it's very tropey for American writing, but but in the fashion of like, oh, there's school bullies. It's really good that Mia steps up to the bullies, but then he steps in to try to defend her, and so it becomes a white knight situation, which is very typical of like socially. Like the guy stands up to white knight the girl. He wins her over that way because he's standing up against overwhelming odds to help her out when he doesn't need to, and therefore that's romantic. So that sort of thing kind of leads the whole way. And I honestly think the head injury that he gets at the beginning is part of what affects all this. But he does steal her away from the quarterback by exempling that he can kill people with this book, and it's ridiculous that like that's what turns her on enough to go out with them. So she's a psychopath. I don't care if she's the one doing the murdering or whatnot throughout the whole movie, because she wants to be. She gets off on the power that he has, and she knows that she can manipulate him, so then she effectively has the power. That's what she likes. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that per se, but it's scary to think of like somebody out there in the world that like, you don't matter. You're not a life that matters because you aren't directly affecting one person. So the idea of Kira that they build is frightening, and that's why the government goes after Kira, if you will. So if you're unfamiliar with what I mean right there, it's like Light creates a character called Kira to take credit for the deaths that he's committing, so that he can take credit, feel like a big badass, and then not get in trouble for it. Plus, it creates this following, and it incites fear into a lot of criminals. They start turning themselves in and stuff. So it's a really cool concept. But Mia actually becomes the yin to the yang here, where like the government's trying to investigate, it's trying to figure out what's happening, because they're, regardless of whether or not you and I in Light consider right and just, a third party just has to see it as another serial killer. Just that serial killer happens to have a thing for suspected, mind you. I don't know if they even went after, I can't remember, I really can't, if they went after convicted criminals with public records, like, because they were killing people everywhere. It wasn't just people who were in prison with like life sentences. And personally, that's where I would have started. Where I had the wrong, like, some people are wrongfully accused, wrongfully imprisoned, wrongfully put on death row, and are appealed at the last minute. Don't know if those appeals are legit or not. Don't know. Not my place to speculate at this point. But honestly, that's where like my brain starts. It's like, okay, these people are already condemned to death. Let's get them knocked out. Get rid of the whole thing, and then hell, if I can get a hold of a prison list, like just start taking that whole prison out. One prison at a time. Start there. Start somewhere where it's like you can't do anything, and then they may even like write it off to like a disease of some kind. That would actually have been really interesting if like he had written in that it was like nuclear what's it called, radiation poisoning or something, and then just have it kill all the inmates. And then you could write it off to it being like something in their food that they were eating, and so that's why the guards weren't susceptible. So it wasn't that the food was radioactive, but the radioactivity was reacting with something in the food. Like, there are diabolical things you can do there, and people smarter than me even will think about. Let's go just a little bit. We'll come up with, and light examples a little bit of here and there, because it is amazing the stuff that he comes up with towards the end of the movie. And like I said, in the anime, they really example it much more consistently. It's very much the Spider-Man treatment. It's Peter Parker doesn't get enough credit. Kira gets a lot of credit here for this overall thing, and we get a very high-level view of kind of what Light's up to. But we don't see like the intricacies of any of his plans and like why Light actually gets involved, because this is an unexplainable thing, and Light gets put on like on big eye cases that can't be solved. He's part of like an organization I really wish the movie had gotten more into, because it would have been much more interesting, especially with the ideas of doing like a spin-off for like investigators, where he's actually like considering like it might actually be a telepathic attack of some kind. So Light comes very, very close to actually learning. I'm sorry, L comes very close to learning about it in the movie, whereas I think in the anime he actually learns it. I don't remember if he gets a hold of the a note itself, but he actually figures out like, hey, this is what's happening. They're writing it in these books, and the books are somehow conveying the deaths. If I remember right, he actually does it himself, like with a piece of paper. He might write Light's name in. I could be wrong. But in this, God, it's just Light's so blinded by his horniness, by this unnecessary romantic connection. I'm not saying Light can't have it, but he doesn't need that to do it. If he had never found the note, would he have never dated anybody? Would he have never, like, do that? We can have a character in its own right, do this, have this parallel life, and then have this super extraordinary life on top of that. It's the idea. It's the idea of doing Batman. It's the idea of doing Spider-Man properly. It's maybe not the X-Men. Mutants have a different deal going on, but you can have that extraordinary life instead of like just having her use him this entire time. It's ridiculous. But L does some very clever things in trying to flush out Kira. He holds a press conference. He taunts Kira to kill him. He even shows his face finally, because for half the movie he's wearing a mask, because he thinks that Kira has to know someone's name and their face. I don't know where he gets that information from. It's part of the investigation stuff that gets covered briefly in the anime and not at all in the movie, because there's just not time. But he does have proof towards that somewhere. But he really goes up there and goes, hey, kill me. Here's my face. You don't know my name, so you can't write it down, but here's my face. And we don't get any of the clever ways around that that we get in the anime, but that's okay. I didn't realize that we actually have multiple scenes on this Ferris wheel until I just looked at my notes right now, because I was like, Ferris wheel, that's not towards the end of the movie. Nope, it's right there in the middle. But you actually can see it, like if you're just watching the movie normally and you're paying attention. Mia ends up taking control for whatever reason. Anyone who writes a name in the book instead of just the owner or the user can kill people with the book. It's ridiculous, or the note. It's a ridiculous angle, but it's part of the rules, and the rules are laid out. They exist. You can look them up on the internet, and people have discussions about them. So it is a thing that can happen and that you can do. Fuck my life. I have no idea how this happens over and over and over again. But so Mia ends up stealing that page from him, and that right there should be all the red flag you would ever need, that you should not trust someone. A, they steal from you at all, really. B, let alone it's something that can like kill mass amounts of people. As long as you write teeny tiny, you can fit as many names as you can on there, and then they're all gonna die. There's a really fucking weird line that L says to Light that I want to make a point of, because the Mia's using him stuff and stealing from him, manipulating him to, in particular, she uses it to kill the investigators, innocent people, if you will, that want to take out Kira, but like it's a line that L wasn't willing to cross, and I want to say in the anime it's actually another Death Note user that ends up doing it, because like she is in love with the idea of Kira and she wants to protect Kira. But the point remains is that like it's a line that Light does not want to cross, because he doesn't think that they'll find him, and B, it sends the wrong message to the followers of Kira, because he's crafted it up to that point, because Mia's just been along for the ride, but now Mia actually disagrees and she wants to create her own Kira, but she doesn't have one. So she's got to model or muddy the clarity of the current Kira. But Ella says to Light, you're the one that flew into the sun, I'm just going to make sure you burn. There's all kinds of metaphor and beautiful like symmetry into that. Like in particular, you take the you're gonna burn is into you're going to hell, and I think someone actually mentioned in chat when we were talking about this online that if by using a death note, like you're damned to hell. Like the fact that like that exists in a world with death gods is a little weird and funny to me, but that would have been my question. As soon as I realized that the Shinigami are real, death gods are real, that would have been my next thing. Been like, well, what else is real? So there's that. And then if you go as far as considering Light to be a savior as Kira, you can do a symbolism to Jesus there and him dying, so you could see that Light is actually either Judas or part of the Romans that would actually eventually crucify and kill Jesus, with Light coming back, which is actually fits more towards the anime, because there is a time where Kira dies and then comes back later because of how smart Light is. But like Light gets fed up with it eventually, and then sees Ryuk in the shadows, and he decides to play with L a little bit, which it seems like the stupidest move. It's like, just don't engage. The best thing you can do is not talk to people gathering evidence to put you away, and that's true in like the real world too. It's undoubtedly what everyone says, and innocent people don't talk, or innocent people don't have anything to hide. Yeah, you do, because they're operating with the assumption that you're guilty, so anything they're using, they're not necessarily using to clear the air, they're using to pin against you, which is why you have a lawyer there to counterbalance those things. Light writing 48 hours of Watari's life, the fact that he could do it off one name was interesting enough to me, because you would think he would need Watari's first and last name. But he makes like a real error there that I wouldn't have expected from Light, where he tells Ryuk dealer's choice, because he's trying to use Watari to get information out of him, and he just can't do it in time. Not only does Mia fuck with him again and ruin his picture perfect plans, like it would have been a bad idea, and like he wouldn't have got the name anyways. Plus, if Watari had lived, he would have kind of ratted him out. Of all the stupid American high school stories, like this isn't even like a coming of age story. This is just, oh, we're adults that happen to go to high school type of thing, because they're, I don't know, they're boning, they don't deal with their parents a whole lot. It's really like his dad's his roommate. It's very strange from this perspective. But like they go to the dance, and they use it as a cover to try to like cover his involvement with Watari, and she ends up using it to fuck with Light more. She's so sadistic that she's like kissing him and manipulating him right to his face and telling him, like ordering him around really to hand over the book. She's doing a forcible coup with kisses and threats after she's written his name in the book. Like right there, we're done. Like there is no more anything at that point. You literally write me to death, or write me out of the story. Then I'm out of the story. There's nothing like that. I'm already dead. So you take her with you. That's the real lesson there. But so they go back to the Ferris wheel. They end up doing this ridiculous chase scene between the high school and the Ferris wheel, and L actually grabs a gun. Like he's lost his mind after the loss of Watari. He's no longer L. He's like L 2.0. Because he mentions earlier in the movie that he doesn't carry a gun normally because he finds it distracting. and they really get interesting with it, because Light gets a point where he finally has Light in his sights, and he's ready to take him out once and for all. And then he's so blinded that Kira as a bad guy, he forgets that there's worshippers everywhere. And he gets knocked out with, like, I think it was a bag of trash or something. Like, some guy taking the trash out bonks him on the head because he tells him that he's got Kira at gunpoint. So there is one thing, like, in his great mystical plan that I am totally unsure of. He takes Elle's gun. He runs to the Ferris wheel. He has this plan to get everything started. So I don't know if Elle's written into the story he writes or not, because they don't show it. They go over bits and pieces of it through narration. But he gets seated and he shoots the Ferris wheel controls and then throws the gun away. What was his plan if he didn't have that gun? I don't know how he would have disabled the Ferris wheel. He could have, like, hit it and then jumped on, maybe. I guess you could be that acrobatically inclined. But they go over that whole, like, the last 10 minutes or whatever, like, not only they go through, like, the craziness, she's trying to take the notebook from him, which is fucked up on her part, like, for a million different ways. And then they do the whole thing where she falls out. They have this beautiful fall where she hits the bed of roses. And I know there's a metaphor in there, I just can't figure out what it is. I don't really care to spend the time on it to puzzle it out, but it looks great. I know there's, like, something about dying on a bed of roses or something like that. They have him hit the water, and water would have been lethal at that point too, especially since it was lower than where the flower arrangement was. Granted, she's not just hitting flowers, she's hitting, like, the wooden structure the flowers are on, so she's dead for sure. But if he cut the water right, maybe he would have lived, but he did not. He hit the water, got the breath knocked out of him. Supposedly he hit his head. He washes up on shore, and he has this crazy intricate plan where he's instructing people to instruct people before they kill themselves. And where he got the names from at the last minute, he must have just had them, like, memorized. He must have, like, the next 3 ready to go. Because that's crazy that he did that. But it is, and it kind of parallels what they did in the anime just a little bit. Just a little bit, that they managed to have him instruct someone else to carry on in the name of Kira while he was incapacitated. Because that happened a couple different ways. With the anime having 2 notes versus the movie having 1, there was a lot more variants available, or options available in that. Plus, they didn't have Light horny off his ass the whole time, which I think is my biggest problem with the entire movie. If I have a hate it for this, it's that. But Ryuk's amazing. I love the way he looks in this. That alone got, like, just high praise out of me. And, like, every scene with him is just creepy as shit. And not necessarily because, like, oh, he's about to do something, just because he's off-putting. Like, he's totally inhuman in the right ways. Plus, it's Willem Dafoe, and Willem Dafoe really brings it to you. Sorry. All the stupid things that I remember from Willem Dafoe, it's Boondock Saints, where the guy's, what if it was one guy with 6 guns, boss? It's like, one guy with 6 guns, get out of here. A lot of people like to point out the cuddle, what a fag thing, which is funny. And if you're unfamiliar with why that's funny, is because Willem Dafoe's character just got done having some intense gay sex with a guy, and he's, like, slapping him in the face as he tries to cuddle, because he's not about that. Oh man, everybody's got their things. But I want to see Netflix do another one of this. I wouldn't mind seeing them do a spin-off with just talking about the L's Institute, because there's, like, a detective or whatever for every letter almost. And doing maybe not even a paranormal investigation, but an investigation show based off that. Doing more, just continuations, like making a franchise of movies. I think there's too much flack from the anime community on this one, I think it's fine as an anime, really and truly. If we're being honest, I like to watch more of the anime. It gets kind of weird towards the end of the second season, if I'm remembering correctly. But like, there's some definitely some interesting stuff going on with Light and the other Kira. Can't remember her name offhand. It's probably Mina. No, Mia. No, I don't know. But there's like a Mina and a Mia in the series, and like one of them is a girl. They're both girls he's dating, but he's too much of a sociopath to really want to date anybody. So one of them is the other Kira, who's in love with Kira, maybe not Light, if we're being honest. So they start working together, and then the other one, I think, is his beard. Like, he uses her as a cover, essentially, to show, like, hey, I can't be doing this, I'm on dates with this girl. But because L's such a good detective, that just gives him more spaces to eliminate. Be like, okay, there weren't deaths at this time, so that's a blank. So that's a correlation that happens, and you can only go so far with correlations, because correlation is not causation. But he manages to figure out that there's two Kiras at one point. So that ends up throwing everything in whack, because once they start working together and coordinating their kills, L has to try to start differentiating the different strains, and it almost drives him crazy, if I'm remembering right. But L is such an interesting character. Usually it's the bad guys that drive it, and if I'm thinking about this, at least from the movie perspective, I can't say that he is. L's definitely the antagonist, which I always think those two terms are reversed. Protagonist, antagonist. The antagonist is the one that drives the story forward. The protagonist is the one that ends up trying to keep the status quo, and it's the opposite of how they're defined. So this is a good example, this may be why it maybe didn't fare so well with the non-anime audience, of the villain of the movie being the good guy, the driving force of the story, but also the one trying to do the moral thing and bring a killer to justice. Granted, you can debate the morality, and the show invites you to, or the movie invites you to, over what Light's doing, especially with Mia as a counterpart. But it's hard to call Light a good guy for real. And if you do, like, it's hard not to consider L a good guy. He's not a corrupt cop. He's in the purest of sense trying to investigate this, and it's one of the few instances in with that perspective of good guys infighting in the way that evil guys do. Because usually when evil guys team up, they're usually so greedy or so maladjusted that they can't actually get along to serve a greater purpose, unless they're all minions. Once they're boss level, then we start into this. So seeing that infighting happen between people that are morally acceptable, granted it takes a little bit of different perspective for that, is really interesting. It's good to note that. So I get to figure out what I'm going to do about this sort of thing. If I have my way about it, maybe I can use the green screen work I'm doing. I've got some time. I can do it tomorrow. I'll figure it out. I'm not worried. So thanks for sticking with me through all the technical fun there at the beginning. I really got to get on top of this background situation, because I'm just not used to it yet. And, hey. So, forget about it. I am Cameron. Until you see us next time, we've had a lot of fun here on #MovieClub with WeAreMovieClub. If you want to see anything else we're up to, go ahead and click the annotations, and they'll take you to our other channels.